Welcome to the comeback season where we are going to have real conversations about fueling your body, rebuilding strength, and stepping back into the life you were meant to live. Whether you've been caring for kids, aging parents, or just lost sight of your own needs, we see you. This is your season to rise. Hello, my name is Nicole McLeod with Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. I'm a mindset and fitness coach and author of I Started on a Tuesday. And I know what it feels like to lose yourself in the chaos and still hold on to that hope that something must be better.
And I'm Christy Kelsey from Christy Counts Macros, nutrition and mindset coach and food freedom advocate. I've worked with many women who feel stuck, restricted, and unsure of where to begin. Together, we're bringing you honest conversations, healing truths, and real strategies to help you rise again, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Whether you've hit rock bottom or you're just tired of putting yourself last, this space is for you because this is your comeback season and it starts right now.
Oh, that's powerful, my friend. So let's just jump right in and talk about today's episode. Today, we are talking about reaching our rock bottoms, turning that breakdown into a breakthrough. I know this topic all too well, and I can share that my rock bottom did not ruin me, but instead it rebuilt me. So let's first start talking about that wake up call, that moment when you realize you've hit your rock bottom. How do we know we're there?
For me, it was the night before my second surgery for colon cancer, and my body had just gone through so much for so long. And I had this epiphany that this body of mine was with me through all of these hard and difficult things in my life, and I needed to shift the way that I thought about it. I needed to go from trying to shrink it and make it smaller to loving it. It was in a place where it needed love, it needed healing, and it honestly was a very lonely place. And I know that it can be different for everybody. So, Nicole, share with us what your rock bottom was like.
Honestly, it was the moment that I felt that I was functioning on the outside, but behind closed doors, the moment I was alone, I just caved. I just crumbled. I felt that I needed to be the strong, reliable mom, coach, leader, and I wore strength like it was literally my armor, and I was so proud of that. But then when I lost touch with who I was and behind closed doors, I felt like I was a stranger to myself. And that lost moment, that feeling of just I was alone was my turning point to realize that I've lost myself. And it wasn't even like the moment of that something happened. It was just that moment that I realized I was done. I was done living like that. I was done feeling those feelings. And I knew that something had to change. And the funny thing is when you think of rock bottom, you think of it as loud as, this terrible catastrophic thing happened. And in your situation, Christy, don't get me wrong, like cancer is terrible and that moment must have been awful, but you got to that point of just one thing after another, after another, after another. And it may not have even just been the cancer, that it was a contributing factor to your aha moment that, our rock bottom doesn't have to be loud. It's actually quiet and freaking scary because it's that moment where you've realized that you've changed internally of who you are and your thought process of what you think of and how you even just solve your day-to-day word your problems, challenges in life. Like it just everything just seems harder. That just I think that was my biggest turning point. I just couldn't get my bearings.
Yes, and I think a common thread is that you get to a point where you know things have to change. You can't keep going on the path that you've been creating for yourself. You've got to change, you've got to pivot.
That's good. It's so true. Because I think so many times, what's the true definition of insanity? To repeat the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Mm.
And we go through that in life, and we think that as long as we're moving forward, but we don't realize that a lot of the times in life, we're not moving forward. We're moving sideways or backwards. For me, I knew it was also when my health took a turn. I was in pain. Emotionally, I was like invisible. Spiritually, God is my everything. And even my spirituality, I was questioning in terms of what I was here to do, like everything.
Yeah, that's
So
so good. When when we're in these struggles, like we both have said, it's very lonely.
yeah.
So what do you think keeps women quiet about their struggles? Why do we stay quiet and stuck in survival mode? And why is this working against us?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that, and I literally just said it. I wore strength like it was my armor.
Mhm.
I had this, and I did it to myself. I had this image I felt, and especially as an instructor and someone that was teaching in front of hundreds of people, and I always had to be on and be this person that I thought I needed to be in this world. And we're conditioned for that. We are conditioned to be strong, to carry everyone else, especially as moms. We don't want
Mhm.
to burden other people. We don't want to admit that we're not okay. I feel that a lot of the times, you know, we don't want it's embarrassing. I was embarrassed. Were you as well, like in that
I,
rock bottom moment?
yeah, yes, absolutely. And scared as well. And,
Yep.
for me, my children were pretty young and I didn't want them to be worried about it. So even though I was at this rock bottom, I was still protecting, protecting my loved ones and didn't want to share too much. And that was part of my turning point was allowing myself to share with them what was going on.
And that was such a huge one for me too. I wrote about that in my book, that the day that I opened my eyes to the reality that I needed help, that
Mhm.
I needed to lean on my loved ones. And you're so vulnerable at that time of your rock bottom. You're in a position that you want to trust people, but you just can't for some reason. And it's almost like your silence becomes your prison.
Mhm.
You're locked in that, and you feel that you have this image, but it's when you share with their loved ones that you really get that aha moment for sure. You get
Yeah.
out of
And
survival mode.
yeah. And when you're used to being the one who people
Mhm.
come to for help, you're used to being the one that, you know, takes a meal to a friend or takes somebody to the doctor's office or, the one that people come to ask for favors and then to ask for help. It's the hardest thing to do.
It's pride. Pride is
Yeah.
a terrible thing, my friend. I talk about that too. It was the pride of not asking for help, not admitting that, oh my gosh, my life is spiraling out of control. I can't just seem to, catch my bearings. And that it really is, the reality to it is you hit your rock bottom the day you stop digging.
Hmm.
It is really, really true. And the one thing to recognize is you're there. You need to recognize you're at your low point, because here's the thing, just like you said, that's when you can pivot. That's
Hmm.
when you can start to see the differences that can come with just changing perspective. Because I don't know about you, but it was the day too that I changed perspective on everything. That
Hmm.
I didn't have this image that I actually needed. I created all this crap in my head that I was this strong person that couldn't fall, and you see yourself, and especially as a mom, like you said, we go through these times in life where we just give, 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 and we just expect that we have to be the giver. We can't be the one that takes that help. So let's talk a little bit about those steps that we took to healing, and what sparked you? Like, what was your turning point, and what were the steps you took to start progressing in a better direction?
Yes. So in that moment of epiphany that I had where I knew that my body was my companion throughout this life, right? And that I needed to really start treating it better instead of trying to make it smaller all the time, depriving it of key nutrients. I needed to nourish my body. I needed not only the nourishment for everyday life, but I was going through another really hard surgery. And I needed the nourishment to recover from that surgery. And with a surgery like that, they don't want you to exercise for months after that. And so I really wanted to just take the time to give myself some grace and to put into my body healthy, nourishing foods. And I did that. I did that after my surgery. I changed a lot of my usual eating habits. And some people when they're at rock bottom, you have to decide, am I going to do the big kahuna? Am I going to make the big huge change that's going
Yeah.
to change the trajectory of my path, or am I going to go for the low-hanging fruits? Neither answer is right. It depends on what you have the ability to do. For me, it was this big kahuna. Like I needed to change what I was eating. I had lots of inflammation in my body that needed to be healed. And so I needed to make some drastic changes for a period of time with my eating. But if you're at rock bottom and you don't have the bandwidth for that, it's okay. You can go for the simple, small, low hanging fruits that are easy for you. Everybody needs something different. How about you, Nicole?
That is such a good metaphor, the low hanging fruits, because it's so accurate. For me, I think when I started to pivot was the day I also realized that nobody was coming to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny that it's not funny, lack of better words, but when you mentioned that you realized in that moment that you needed to nourish your body, I became a victim to my own circumstance and actually reflected what I coached over the years, thousands of people not to do. And it's funny how human behavior and imposter syndrome is such a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I got to my low points that I couldn't work out because I was recovering from these surgeries, I was sick, I had all these, I felt like my life was just going out of control. Did I go, okay, I can't do X, Y, and Z, but I can still do these things to help contribute? No, my attitude was, well, forget it. Just throw it out. I'm not going to take, there's no point of wasting money on taking supplements right now. I can't work out, oh, I won't do this strict, diet or whatever because I lost track of myself and my health because I couldn't still work out and do all these other things. It was almost like in my head, it was like this package. It was all or none. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do this because I couldn't do this. Like it was a silly mindset. And it was when I shifted that mindset, actually listened to my own words, what I coached
Mm-hmm.
thousands of people over the years to do was, do what you can with what you got and where you are.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
so true.
Yes. So maybe you can't lift weights, but you can go for a walk every day.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I can't do this thing. And the reality to it, even as a trainer, 80% of people's results are not in the gym. It's in the kitchen. It's
Mm-hmm.
what you feel. And if we're going through a depression and anxiety, if you would have asked me even 5 years ago, if anxiety and depression was real, I would have told you to put on your big girl panties, deal with it. It's called life. Let's go. And I didn't ever sit back to realize that it was a real thing. But still, in my opinion, and I'm not criticizing anybody that's going through that, we don't take advantage of the resources available to us to
Mm-hmm.
get through those times of depression and anxiety. For example, it's proven that when you move your body, or exercise, the hormones that are released from when a muscle contracts is the best antidepressant on planet Earth. Getting outside, vitamin D, getting sunshine,
Mm-hmm.
fueling your body. Your brain needs nutrients. If you're not fueling it properly and you're getting fast food and you're not taking the time, of course you're going to stay depressed. Of
Mm-hmm.
course you're going to, and then you're going to downward spiral. So it does come down to a choice. You have to choose. I'm done, no more, and I'm going to step by step make the changes that will get me out of where I am, even if it's messy. And that
Yeah.
was another thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You
Mhm.
know, there's no rules.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk, we're gonna get away. I know you and I can talk for forever on this, but what were some small things that you did that you think really contributed to your awakening and getting and finally moving forward?
Yes. So, first of all, showing love to myself, my body,
Yes.
my whole self. That was a huge shift for me. And it wasn't that I didn't love myself before, but I had a lot of negative self-talk. And the negative self-talk is not helpful at all. We tell ourselves a lot of bad information, a lot of lies,
So
and
many.
yes, and they turn into beliefs which affect our actions.
That's right.
So the first thing I did was, like I said, gave myself some grace and just realized that this was going to be for a short season, that I had to limit myself with my activity, the usual things that I do, and my food was going to be a little bit different for a while I was trying to figure some things out. I did an elimination diet and really, really focused on the quality of nutrition that was coming into my body as I healed from my surgery. And I just, like we mentioned before, I couldn't lift weights, so I would walk. And those were some of the things that helped me to heal, helped me to come out of it. But I think the biggest thing for me was that mindset shift of, oh, I can't just keep treating my body like this and expect to have a long life. Our
True.
bodies need more than what I was giving my body. And, when we're constantly chasing these fitness goals, it's not that it's a bad thing, but for example, we can't stay in a calorie deficit for our whole life
You're
and
so right. The pressure we put on ourselves to do these
yes,
things, absolutely. Yeah.
yes, we need to feed our bodies.
Yeah.
And that was a huge lesson for me, was to stop depriving myself all the time
All the
and
time.
feed myself nourishing foods. And honestly, so I did this really strict elimination diet for about 3 months, and when I started adding the foods back in, I was still selecting high quality stuff, and then some of the high processed junk foods started creeping back in, and I could tell a difference in my energy
Mhm.
instantly between the real food and the manufactured food. It was night and day difference. So that was another huge shift for me, was just realizing my body feels better when I put real food in it.
It's a concept, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
we talk about that metaphor of, you know, you can't put water in a car to make it run, but yet for some reason we expect, especially when we're down and we're our brains, like I said, need that extra nourishment.
Mhm.
You know, we deprive our bodies of that. Now, you know, definitely 100%. I won't repeat that because you just went off. I definitely started taking my nutrition more seriously, but I did make more of an effort, even on the days that I felt like I didn't have the energy. You know, as a trainer, that was a hard one for me. Pride is a terrible, terrible thing. And, you know, I had this image that I thought I needed to keep up. And even with myself, you know, I was always known for my muscles. I was always known for being strong. And I feel like I turned from this strong woman that could do clean and jerks and was teaching people how to Olympic lift to barely being able to put a coffee cup on the top shelf and need help with the smallest tasks in life. And that shift of humility really put things in perspective for me. And the
Mhm.
steps that I personally did on top of, like I just said, the nutrition, move your body, even if it's 10 minutes a day, get outside, go for a walk. If it's raining, folks, in places in, like I just moved from BC, it rains a lot. Well, you're not made of sugar. Get out, move your body. You're still going to get the benefits.
Mhm.
And the big one for me was journaling.
Mm.
Journaling all of my thoughts, because just like you said, self and being a, you know, self imposter, or yeah, imposter syndrome, sorry, not self imposter, imposter syndrome is a real thing and we lie to ourselves. Like some of the things that I say to myself, I would never say to another human being on this planet. Why do I so readily say these things? And, I know this isn't our topic, but when you really dig down into where that's coming from, a lot of the times that is coming from like childhood trauma, like lies you were told your whole life, and you learn to believe these lies. So, a way out of that for me was writing the truth. So, this is actually what I did. I wrote down all of the lies in my head that I know I say to myself all the time. Under those lies, I put the truth. So my piece of paper I had, it was like 10 pages long. Lie, truth, lie, truth, lie, truth. And I took time and I every aspect of my life, my children, my husband, my finances, we're as a whole, we're holistic. My relationship with God, and that's another thing, I stopped praying. I stopped doing the things that kept me grounded. So I wrote that, the truth, the lie, the truth, the lie. Every day I read the truth, the lie, the truth, the lie. And I did that for 2 weeks. And then in 2 weeks, I erased the lies. And then I said the truth, the truth, the truth, the truth. And it literally rewires your brain. Because if you think your brain is not listening to you, you got another thing coming. Like it's whatever you tell yourself all the time, it's listening. And that is what you are, if you realize it or not. And to doing something like that, which I would have probably laughed at someone doing that. Oh, it's hokey pokey, whatever. Well, that hokey pokey worked for me. And it really was the turning point for me to wake up and realize the choice was mine. I may not have control of my health. Well, I did more than I thought, but there's sometimes cancer, things happen to us in life. We have two choices. We can be the victim to it or we can respond accordingly. Right?
Yeah.
And taking that personal responsibility, choosing to respond in a season of my life that I knew I was struggling. And before it goes back to you, my friend, that's the last tip I can give people is recognize it's a season. It's not forever. You are in a tunnel of maybe darkness, and maybe it feels like you're going through that tunnel of darkness. But if you actually more are in a cave, you ain't getting through it. Sometimes you got to push through and you got to keep going through that tunnel. If you can see the end or not, just know there's an end. Know there's another side to that. You, my friend, have a great metaphor I want you to share.
Okay, so I was telling Nicole this before we started recording, but when I was a kid, I used to love to swim. And one of my very favorite things to do was jump in the deep end of the pool. And I would let myself sink clear to the bottom. And when my feet hit the bottom, I would bend my knees and just push off the bottom as hard as I could. And that would propel me all the way to the top. And I just loved that feeling. And I feel like our lowest point be that push off for us. Where is it going to take us? If we let it, if we let that be our push off place, we can make huge strides, huge changes in our lives that will change us forever. It doesn't have to be the end. Rock bottom doesn't have to be the end. There's so much more to life, and we don't have to stay there. We don't have to stay there.
I love that. That is so powerful. And it's so true. Those days, and of course, I don't want to stay in the mindset ever and be back to where I was, but I do remind myself of how I felt there and to give myself that grace. And also, I don't know if you agree with this or you do it as well, but I think it's important that we remember, don't, obsess about it, but remember what we did and how far we've come and that feeling of that push off. Because I can, as soon as you said that to me before we started recording here, I was like, damn, like that moment, that momentum push, that's what it feels like when you finally go, I choose me, I choose myself, I choose to stop listening to the lies. And we know they're lies, but yet we listen to them. So let's shift it a little bit. we've both talked about, we both know our faith. We're both
Mhm.
followers of Jesus. And that for me was my rock in my low
Mhm.
places, meditating, praying, whatever you believe in this world. If it's
Mhm.
about, if the universe is your go to for terminology, it's important to connect.
Mhm.
Whatever you believe, we all know there's something greater than us. So for me, in my lowest moments, I did have quite the pity parties with God and had
Mhm.
some conversations I'm probably not very proud of. But it was definitely in those moments of meditation, prayer, and remembering who I am, but what I'm created to do. What
Yeah.
about you, my friend?
Yes. I remember one day standing in the shower after I got my diagnosis and I felt so lonely and I just cried and I just cried. And I told God, I want to live. I want to live. I want to see my kids grow up. I want to see what they are going to do with their lives. And I want to see my grandbabies. I felt like in that moment, I was making a choice of putting my faith in God that He was going to take care of this for me. And I'm the same with you. Like that was my rock through that time. And I have a lot of faithful friends who prayed for me, and I could feel that. It was almost palpable. I could feel their prayers for me, and that gave me so much strength during that time.
There's so much power in prayer. And you can, if you open your mind to the idea. And a lot of the times I find, because as a human being in life, you're going to have some people that believe in God and others that don't. And
Mhm.
I do notice in the hardest times those that lean on something bigger than them, that
Mhm.
comfort. It's just, you remember when you were a kid and your parents, you just knew they were going to take care of you. You just
Mhm.
had that comfort that you knew you could go to bed at night, even though sometimes you'd hear your parents arguing, or you'd have an idea that maybe financially or they were struggling with something. You just knew they were going to take care of it.
Yes.
Well, the day that I just knew God was going to take care of me, when I just knew, and I should have known this for all these years. I've been a Christian for decades. In my hardest moments, I didn't follow through with the gift that I had, that I didn't need to hold this burden on my own. And I was able to go, okay, God, just take it. And
Mhm.
that was such a turning point. Like Christy, like how you and I met, our journeys are case in point. You
Mhm.
had these last hell of the last how many years, I did as well. We come together ready to just help. If this podcast can help one person on this planet, then what we've done and what we've gone through was worth every second. Because that, in my opinion, is what life is all about.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I've had multiple health issues since my early 20s. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I've had joint pain more than half my life. I've had several bouts of cancer and other um, less life-changing things, but also, things I've had to work around in my life. But I've always kind of felt in my heart, someday I'm going to be able to share what I went through to help another person.
That's
And
incredible. And look at you. Look at you now. That story, that comeback, that ability to even just be where you're at. But it's because you didn't give up.
And I think that's me pushing off the bottom of the pool.
Yes.
I'm going to make something of this. This isn't for naught. And that's part of the faith as well of, we can't there are some things we can control in our lives and there are some things that we can't. And we walk in faith in this life and put one foot in front of the other, even though we don't know what's going to be around the corner. And I think that's kind of what my current path is to create a life that is healthy and nourishing so that I'm strong enough to face whatever comes.
Yes.
And it's one thing to have faith in, your God or whatever you believe in, that things are going to work out for you, but do you have the faith if it doesn't work out? And
Oh, that's good. That is good. Yep.
and I think that, I mean, none of us is going to live on this earth forever,
Yep.
and we eventually come to an end, but we hope to live long and healthy lives so that we can be with our loved ones here for as long as we can. So I think, that's kind of what faith has helped me build in my life is I have faith to be healed, but I also have faith that things are going to work out for me and my family if I'm not healed. And that's a
That's so
whole other
important.
day.
I love that. And you know what? Thank you for reminding me of that too, because I think that's just as important. And I talked a little bit about personal responsibility. Well, personal responsibility isn't about pointing the finger. It's about how you choose to respond.
Mhm.
So that is something that will help you get out of your rock bottom faster is if you're choosing to respond in a way that you sometimes in life we just have to roll with the punches. Like, sometimes in life that thing happened and who you are in that season, in that moment, will define the trajectory of where you're going to head. I feel that a lot of us, and this is one thing I don't know if you can say the same, but I was not proud of myself in the last 5 years of who I was in those bad times all the time. You really want to see it, the true nature of a person's heart and where they're at in a season. Catch them on a streak of bad days and who they are on those streak of bad days. Who are they? How are they responding? And I don't want to downplay anybody's terrible things that happen in life because I know there's horrible things that happen, but choosing to be a victim to your circumstance is never the answer.
Mhm.
Sometimes having grace is one thing, but choosing to stay there because it feels comfortable in your dysfunction, because we take comfort in our dysfunction all
Mhm.
the time. I'm happy in my own broken little bubble here. I don't
Yeah,
want to venture out anywhere,
it's what we know.
Yes, yes, but no, that's a really good point, my friend, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about um the transition of the nourishment and moving your body and what recovery looks like. How do you
Mhm.
know that you're there?
How do you know that you're at recovery or
Yes,
recovered?
emotional recovery as well, not even talking physical, the
Mhm.
emotional, because let's be honest, rock bottom isn't just physical, it's more emotional.
Yeah, and I think, it takes time. It takes time to heal, and it might be a lifelong process. I feel like I'm constantly learning new things about myself and kind of tweaking things here and there as I learn more. And it's like when you exercise, your body adapts
Mhm.
and you need to pick up a heavier weight, right?
Fire. So true.
Yeah.
Yep, bam, yep.
Yeah, so when we when we start to pull ourselves up from that rock bottom, maybe doing the big kahuna like I talked about earlier is not the right thing for you. Maybe you need to start with some very small, very basic things like starting your day off with a drink of water or going outside for 10 minutes of sunshine,
That's right.
going for a walk, something you can do every single day. And it's not going to be a problem to do that because when you start to build that consistency, you start to build trust with yourself
That's
again.
right. I talk about that in my book.
Yeah,
That
and I
and
think
it's
those are
writing it
huge.
down. Write everything down too.
Mhm. Yeah, and celebrate.
Yes.
Celebrate that you took that glass of water before you did anything else today, or, got 10 minutes of sunshine, whatever it is you decide to do, celebrate the heck out of it because that also helps rewire your brain and
Absolutely.
recognize those positive things in your life. Because we tell ourselves so many negative things, it takes effort to point out to ourselves the good things that we're doing. But
Why is
it's
that? But we're first to acknowledge the bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an important thing. And then when we notice that we're saying those negative thoughts, catch them and say,
Yep.
"Oh, I noticed without judgment, what this is. What is this thought that I'm having? Name it. And then you can start asking yourself questions. Is this true? Is this kind? Would I say this to a friend? And if those are no, then you can shift those thoughts into something that's more positive.
You have to interrupt them. You
Yeah,
have
you
to
do.
interrupt the thoughts. Because
You
if you
really
don't
do.
interrupt them, they're going to be on repeat in your head. And usually that's linked to a trauma in your childhood. That if you feel that you're stuck on a repetitive emotion, thought, and it just keeps showing up, that's a very good sign that something's, that you need to work on something. And for myself, that definitely was a turning point for me too. But you got to interrupt the thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. And ask yourself, what is it that I really need right now? Am I taking the wrong action, or do I need to heal something from the past, or
Mhm.
do I just need more nourishment, more movement, more sunshine? Do I need to take some time to sit down and meditate or pray or write in my journal? What's going to be supportive of me right now?
Yeah. I think for me too, and this is all I tell this to clients. I actually think I just did a media post about this the other day, is that celebrate, yes, the small wins and check them off. Keep
Hmm.
record of it. So let's say I wanted to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I made it to the gym, but I only did 10 minutes on the treadmill. Awesome. You made it to the gym. You won out, even if it was a 5-minute walk, just like you said, even if it was drinking a glass of water in the morning instead of right to your coffee.
Hmm.
However, you're moving forward, little bits of momentum accumulate into big, not big bits, something big. You know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect. That was another, like, why do we, okay, so I'm out of my rock bottom, so now everything's going to go perfect right away. Well, no, it's not. You didn't get to your rock bottom overnight. You
Yeah.
are not going to get out of it overnight. It's a little climb. And heck, realistically, Christy, this might be, we might reflect back on our episode 1 of today versus episode 30 and go, the funny thing is we were still in our rock bottom. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And
Yeah.
as long as you're moving forward and you're creating momentum, you're always going to see results. It really is a thing.
Yeah. It's true. And, when we're coming out of rock bottom, um, we're not there with nothing. We have skills, we have talents,
Yeah.
we have gifts, and we can turn to those and say, okay, well, what is going well in my life right now? What can I draw on from the past that I've used before? What tools have I used in the past to help me, even if it's just a little bit?
Yeah.
And start there. Start with something that you know is a strength of yours, and then you can build on that.
I fully agree. I absolutely agree because, just in term as it is important to take responsibility and realize that, the things in life you need to do better at, it's just as important to remember the beauty in who you are and that there's one of you in this world. And there is something, and I talk about this in my book, there is something amazingly and inherently special about every single human being. Every single human being is created for greatness and to do something in this world that nobody else can do. And the moment that we start to think about what that thing is and what we're created to do and how we can bring light to this world, how can we bring unity back to this, oh my gosh, divided world? And I don't even have to say much more than those words. And we both know what I'm talking about, and every listener is here. But what would happen if we all just realized, you know what, that's going on, but let's just focus on being a better person to give back to this world? Because when you give back, it pulls you out of rock bottom so much faster. Generosity and the act of giving actually translates in your brain. And I should have probably done my homework before I start spewing off things that I don't have 100% accurate. But on a high level nutshell, I can say that there is a part of your brain is activated when you give back. So
Mhm.
generosity and giving your time, volunteering, focused on something else besides you actually helps recover your brain, gets you out of depression, gets you out of that rut. Because think about it, whenever in life have you given a gift to somebody and it didn't feel good? Ever. Like giving a gift, I personally love giving gifts more than receiving them. Like the act of thinking about what I'm going to buy for that person and the excitement. I am one of those that I just really struggle on Christmas to not tell people what I got them because it's just so exciting for me.
Yeah.
You know, what if we
Yeah,
had that mindset?
right, right. And if you are at rock bottom and you cannot find your tools, the things that you know are your gifts and your talents and your strengths, talk to a friend, talk to
Yes.
a loved one, hire a coach. These are the kind of things that Nicole and I help people with. And
Yes.
you don't have to go through this alone. And you're not broken. You're not behind. You're simply standing at the beginning of something new.
I love
The
that.
path forward isn't about being perfect. It's about choosing to care for yourself, one small step at a time. Fuel your body, move with love, speak to yourself like someone worth supporting because you are.
Yes.
This is the comeback season and you're already in it.
Yes. And if you are in the thick of it right now, feeling like you're lost, you're not yourself, and you're unsure how to rise, hear us both. Your story, my friend, is not over. Rock bottom is not your ending. It's the place where you're rebuilding. Even the smallest step forward is victory. Every little thing that you're doing for yourself is a step in the right direction because, my friends, you are so much stronger than you think. And healing is so possible, but it has to start with a choice, one small choice. Well, my friend, what a good first episode. Thank you for coming. She's like, I came. But I say thank you to the listeners for listening.
Yes, we will see you next time.
Yes, we will.